Yeah, when you met Bryan Cranston and Bob Odenkirk, what was that like? What was that like for you guys?
Um, Bob Odenkirk I had met a couple of times because he would come to the Grey Dog Cafe where I worked in New York, and so it's cool. And then I met him at San Diego Comic Con, and so it's cool to remind him and be like, "Hey, man." He's like, "Oh yeah, that guy. What's up?" And Bryan Cranston is a very interesting story because I bumped into him in a friend and a mentor of mine, Greg Jabara, is good friends with him.
Huh.
They have an episode, a really great episode that Greg guest starred on for Malcolm in the Middle. I think it's called like Neighbors or something like that. He's a next door neighbor. He moves in and like they have like a bromance and they're on either side of the fence. Like, no, don't go. Like as he's having to move. It's really funny. But Brian, I ran into in Central Park in 2015 before I moved here, before I moved to LA,
Oh,
and I saw him walking. I bumped into
yeah.
him in Central Park, and I went over to him and I said, "Hey," and he was kind of like, "Hi, yeah," and just kept walking. And
Really?
but I just a second time I was like, "Hey, I don't mean to bother you. I'm really good friends with Greg Jabara," and he was like, "Oh my gosh, Greg, no way! When was the last time you saw Greg? This is my wife," and he just opened up, and I was like, "Wow, he's actually talking to me." Because my thing was I never really wanted to get an autograph or a picture. I just
Yeah.
wanted to like meet somebody and just ask them for advice. And so I talked to him and I asked him, I told him last time I saw Greg, I don't know, it's been several years. And I asked him for advice and he talked to me for like 10 minutes, which is a big
Wow.
deal to just stop in the middle of the day in Central Park. And he just gave me a piece of advice after advice. And I was asking him questions about, I heard that with Breaking Bad, you walked in there and you metaphorically dropped the script on the ground, peed on it, and said, "This is mine." And he laughed. He's like, "I did well, kind of, yeah." And he said, "It's a confidence that you want." But he gave me advice that I could get into that it just was so pivotal, and I applied it when I auditioned for Death Note, and it
Holy
worked.
crap. Can
I
you tell
would
us
not.
what that advice was a little
Yeah, I
bit?
mean,
Can you go
he
into it?
said every time you walk into a room, don't ever go in there looking to get something from someone. Always go in there looking to offer them your idea. Don't try and make it what they want. They don't know what they want. They're
Uh-huh.
terrified. You don't get the role, who cares? You don't lose
Sure.
anything. They don't find the right person. They cast the wrong person. They're screwed.
Huh.
They're more afraid on the other side of the table than you are. And
I
they
would
said
have
they
never
just
expect that.
right, but I mean it kind of makes sense because they're putting in they're on it. They have to find the right person to play whatever character. So he said they're waiting for someone to come in and take control of the room. It's not a cockiness, it's a confidence of, "Hey, I'm happy to be here. I have an idea. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. I don't know, but here it is. Awesome. Have a great day. Thank you so much for having me." And leave. And he said, what happens is you can walk in the room and instantly like they're not the right look. And you can't
Sure.
do anything to change that.
Yeah.
Jack Black is not going to be like a shoot it straight Batman. I would like to see him as Batman. He could actually be, but not as like, you know, Christopher Nolan's Batman.
Sure.
No
Yeah.
matter
He's not going to
how
be Christian
good,
Bale.
no matter how good the audition is. But he said what'll happen is if you go in there and you do that, it gives you a higher likelihood of leaving the room. And they're like, "All right, goodbye." Oh my gosh, he's not right for this, but he's so good. He was so save his stuff. We got to find something to work with him on.
Huh.
But he said, then if you are right, then they're going to pick you. Like, holy crap. I mean, maybe not, but and so I said, okay. So then when Death Note came around, you get an audition, you get 3 or 4 pages of the script. Maybe they're not even real pages. Well, and there's a place where it says start with an arrow at this line,
Uh-huh.
and then down at the end or stop. They're gonna audition just this, and they had that halfway down the second page. But the first page and a half, it was the scene where Ryuk, the Death God, causes all this havoc in the study hall, and then ultimately reveals himself. And I thought in the first page and a half was the light bulb bursts and a desk goes flying, and he thinks he hears something over his shoulder, and he turns around and he's gone, and Ryuk turns into this like, and I was like, all of that is a lot of fun, and I instantly knew everyone's going to walk in. This is back in the in-person audition days, and they're going to go in and say, And the casting director is going to say, let's start here. And they're going to say, yep, sure. I said, I'm going to stand out. I'm going to tell them, no, I have a really good idea. This is my idea. I have a really good idea. It might be wrong. I don't know. But I think it's freaking awesome. And I just asked myself, how would Doug Jones do this? And I recorded it on my laptop like 50 times the night before and just did it again and again and would watch it and be like, that works, that works, that works. That doesn't work. What if I try this? And I just did it until it looked amazing. And I was like, I'm ready. I'm ready to go in. Because there's one part that says like, he turns into like he's solid and he turns into liquid smoke. And then he moves across the room and then he re-solidifies. I'm like, how would you even do that? And I pictured like, well, what if I just down towards the ground and then just kind of moved around the ground and then came back up and then solidified and just did all that. I was like, okay, I'll try that. Like I did that and like I found whenever I got down to the ground and I kind of swirled around and if my hands lifted off the ground, it didn't look like liquid smoke. But if I kept my hands and my feet down towards the ground the whole time with every movement, it kind of looked a little more fluid. And I was like, okay. And so and then I was like, I wonder, like, you can't really see the lines where the black is on my shirt right now, like right here where my arm is. It's just black.
Uh-huh.
And I have a onesie leotard, long sleeve, zip up in the back for like ballet and mime. And it's like, what if I wear that? And then you couldn't tell where I ended. It was just all black, and it looked like I was turning into liquid. I was like, okay, cool. And so I did. So I went in there to the audition, and I went into the audition. And I was so ready. And I went into the bathroom and put on this unitard from head to toe in this black. They were probably like, okay. Everyone else like wearing clothes.
And not to mention, you're like, what, 6'5", right?
6'9".
Like, you're super tall. 6'9", you're
Yeah.
almost 7 foot. So seeing like a 7-foot man in a black leotard from head to toe,
Yeah,
it's
I'm just
gotta
sitting
be a
there,
sight to see,
cross-legged on the ground, like getting ready. And we go in, and she just said, okay, yeah, let's start at the top of page 2. And I said, no, let's start at the top of page 1. I'm gonna get here when the light bulb pops. I'm gonna get here when I land here. You give me that line, and I'll take from there. And she was like, yeah, okay, all right. And we did it. If you've ever auditioned, people tell you like, like, okay, thank you very much. We'll be in touch.
We'll call you back. Yep.
Great. Let's try it one more time. Let's do it like this. When she pressed stop on the record button, she literally was like, stop. That was amazing. That was incredible. That was the best anyone's done all day. Everything you just did, no one else has done. I'm quoting verbatim. I remember because I told this story so many times. I was like, I can't believe she's telling me this right now. And then I got a call back. And when I went in and I opened the casting director door, they buzzed me in with the camera downstairs, so they knew I was coming in. I opened the door. I couldn't even see anyone yet. I just hear, Jason, let's get you this role. I had never been in a movie or a TV show at this point, just short films. And then I booked it and I cried and I went to Vancouver and it was amazing.